Another film I watched this weekend was The Sound Barrier, David Lean's 1952 drama about aircraft flying men and the women in their lives and the aeroplanes that they flew. It is a completely fictionalized story of the attempts to break the sound barrier. Um, we focus on a pilot who's recruited by a private aeronautics company to work as a test pilot and fly their test planes. But as time goes on, this creates tension within his marriage to the daughter of the company's owner. It's a film that's hard to talk about because it's so light on plot, and it left such an unpleasant taste because, as I say, the film is entirely fictitious. It's trying to create a myth of British technical excellence when, even within the fiction of the story, it doesn't make any sense. A vast amount of the story is supposed to be set post-war, with attempts still searching to build the better aircraft and find the better pilot that can break through the sound barrier. And there's lots of technical talk about traveling faster than sound and the way that air moves and aeronautics and aeronautical engineering. But it all ignores the fact that the sound barrier was broken in 1946 by an American, Chuck Yeager, flying the Bell X-1. So the whole film really becomes moot because everyone's talking about something that, although it really matters within the story, it doesn't actually matter anything else because it's completely made up. The conflict that they're talking about doesn't exist and isn't acknowledged within the context of the story. And although you could say that about literally any fictional story, that this is a completely fictional story about a real thing. So imagine, for example, a film about, if they were making a film about trying to create the first atomic bomb within the same context, within the same era of it being the late 1940s and early 50s. Americans got there first years earlier. So what is this about? The characters are generally a bit flat, and the pilots really aren't much more than Biggles cutouts. It's really, I think, a weak film. The casting is, I mean, most of the actors' names have already evaporated from memory. Much of the film exists to be a vehicle for David Lean's wife, Ann Todd, who was not a very good actor. Ralph Richardson plays her father, the head of the company, whose accent varies wildly. He usually remembers that the character was supposed to be from the northeast of England. But you get a sense that he feels that this is beneath him. It's a really surprisingly weak film, and for a director who was so exacting later in his career in creating such masterful epics like The Bridge on the River Kwai or Lawrence of Arabia, it feels weak. It feels flabby in its editing, and there's a plane crash sequence earlier on which is very badly cut. It's just not interesting. It fails to overcome the redundancy of its own nature. There hasn't, as far as I'm aware, been a proper film about the breaking of the sound barrier. It's incorporated to an extent into the film The Right Stuff, which starts with Yeager breaking the sound barrier and ends with the Mercury missions into space. And this film, too, suggests that the next stop after breaking the sound barrier is travelling into space. But it strongly implies that it's going to be Britain that gets there first. And so it's almost as though this is a prequel to the Quatermass series, which opened in 1953 with Professor Bernard Quatermass and the British Rocket Group supervising the first successful space shot, which ends with two of the astronauts being eaten by a space monster, which absorbs the third and goes on a rampage around Westminster Abbey. The Sound Barrier is not a good film. It's trying too hard to be a romantic drama, and to be about this great technical achievement, but at the same time, it completely ignores reality. It completely ignores actual history, apart from a few offhand mentions of real aviators. And the result is something that never really argues for its own existence. It was a stepping stone by Lean towards a different type of filmmaking. His next one would be Summertime, the romantic drama set in Venice with Katharine Hepburn. And then he would move on to his more epic film stories. But as the last gasp of his earlier World War II style films, like In Which We Serve or Brief Encounter, which is a masterful film, I think this is a very weak piece of work and probably the worst film of his that I've seen.